So as most of you may already know, my son was born recently in Toronto. I've shared my wife's pregnancy journey in this vlog right here. It's also linked below. If you have not seen it, definitely go check it out. Now, the first thing that we did after bringing our son home, after obviously mentally preparing ourselves for the many sleepless nights ahead, was to register his birth and then apply for his primary documents. So in this video, let me show you how we got his health card, registered his birth, applied for his birth certificate, SIN number, Canada child benefits, all in one single application. Where did we apply for these? What were the eligibility requirements? And finally, how long did all of this take for us and what to expect from your own timeline? Now in this video, to save time, I'll only be showing you the Ontario process, but the birth registration process for other provinces is more or less the same, with some minor differences. So if you understand the logic behind this one, you can apply the same logic to other provinces as well. And I'll obviously be leaving links down below in the description for other provinces so you can go check them out. So if your baby was born in an Ontario hospital like my son, then after the birth of the baby, the nurse will give you an Ontario Health Coverage Infant Registration form. This is basically the health card application for your baby, meaning the OHIP application for your baby. So you fill that form out right there in the hospital with some basic details of the baby, such as the name, date of birth and address. And it's okay if you don't have a name yet for the baby, but I'll highly recommend think of a name ahead of time. It will make things easier. So you fill out this OHIP application form and then they'll tear up the top part of the form and then submit it to Service Ontario on your behalf. Basically, that's how the hospital staff will apply for your baby's health card for you. So you don't have to apply for your baby's OHIP. Then they'll give you this bottom part which looks something like this, a small strip of paper with the baby's health number, name and date of birth. This is kind of like a receipt for the OHIP application for your baby. So preserve this receipt because this will work as a temporary health card for your baby until you actually receive the physical card in the mail. Now we received our baby's health card in the mail in 45 days. And these timelines can vary depending on your location. For Toronto, it could be longer, but you should expect to receive your baby's health card in the mail in 8 weeks tops. Now, when you're getting ready to leave the hospital, they'll give you a discharge paper for the baby, which is going to look something like this. And it will have basic information about the baby, which they registered at birth. So the name of the physician or doctor who delivered the baby, birth date, obviously, time, discharge date, type of birth, the gender, birth weight, and the gestational age, meaning duration of pregnancy in weeks, and some other information which they mention for their own records. So keep these discharge papers handy because when you come back home and you're doing the online application for your baby, you are going to need these discharge papers to reference them so that you can put the right information in your application. So when you're doing the application online, the information that you provide from these discharge papers, the basic information, should match the information on the notice of live birth which the hospital already sent to the office of the Registrar General. If it's a match, then they create a permanent record and register the birth of your baby. So most provinces offer the online method to register the birth of the baby, but also apply for the birth certificate, SIN number, Canada child benefits and other additional services in a single application. Ontario calls this the 5-in-1 bundle, meaning 5 applications in one. So here's the Service Ontario page for registering the birth of your baby. I'll link it in the description below. So if you scroll down, up top in bold letters it says there is $0 fee for registering the birth of your baby as long as you do it within the 12 months of your child being born. Now, the government of Ontario actually requires you to register the birth within 30 days of your child being born. So make your best attempt to register the birth within 30 days of your child being born. But if you miss the 30-day deadline, that's fine. You can still do it for free as long as you do it within 12 months. But if you miss the 1 year or 12-month mark, you can still register the birth of your baby, but then it will cost you $50. So if you scroll down on this page, you'll get to this 5-in-1 newborn bundle. Basically, in one application, you can register the birth of your child, apply for their birth certificate, their SIN number, apply for Canada child benefits, and request an education savings referral. So these are 5 applications done in one single application, one single sitting. That's why it's called the 5-in-1 newborn bundle. So if you scroll down, click on this apply for the 5-in-1 newborn bundle, you'll get to the actual application portal. This is where you can register the birth, apply for the birth certificate and these other additional services all in one single application. So this was the application page for Ontario and we'll come back to this, but most other provinces work similarly. For example, this is the page for British Columbia. I'll link it in the description below. So you can read all about the instructions, step-by-step process. It's all here. And if you scroll down, click on this register your newborn button. it will take you to the online portal where you can follow their step-by-step instructions and register the birth, apply for the child's birth certificate, enroll your child in MSP, which is the British Columbia Health Plan, and then apply for their SIN number, CCB, all in one single application. Somewhat similar logic to Alberta as well. So here's the page for Alberta. Under Register a Birth Online, click on this online birth registry, and similarly in one single application you can apply for multiple services. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you want to use this 5-in-1 bundle service for Ontario, or whatever bundle service for whatever province you're registering your newborn in, then besides registering the newborn as well as applying for their birth certificate, if you also want to apply for the SIN number and Canada Child benefits for your child in the same bundle application, then the primary caregiver, the parent who's the primary caregiver, has to meet certain eligibility requirements. So first of all, who's the primary caregiver? So the primary caregiver is the person who's primarily responsible for the baby. So if you're a couple with a male and a female parent, then the female parent, the mother, becomes the primary caregiver. Now, if you're a same-sex couple or have a custody arrangement situation going on, then in order for one parent to be considered as a primary caregiver, you may need to meet certain additional requirements. So I'm going to leave a page down below in the description. You can read all about who's a primary caregiver and how you can think of this primary caregiver situation for cases like these. But in general, whenever there's one male and one female parent, the mother who gives birth, is considered to be the primary caregiver. So coming back to the eligibility requirement, if you're using this 5-in-1 bundle service and you want to apply for Canada Child benefits and SIN number for your child in the same application as the birth certificate and birth registration, meaning you want to apply all of that together, then the primary caregiver has to be a permanent resident or Canadian citizen. If the primary caregiver is not a permanent resident or Canadian citizen, then they can still apply for CCB and SIN number, but they just can't use the bundle service to do that. They will have to apply separately. So for SIN number for your child, you can apply directly at Service Canada, and for Canada Child benefits, you will have to apply directly at the CRA website using your My account. So I know it's a lot, don't get confused. This is going to make more sense as we go into the process, into the 5-in-1 bundle. I'll give you more examples when we get to that part, and this will all make sense. Alright, so coming back to the Service Ontario page, if you scroll down, click on this Apply for the 5-in-1 Newborn Bundle. This is the application portal. You click on Register Now and you start the application. So you scroll down, click on Get Started, and now this is the first application in the bundle, Birth Registration. So was the child born in Ontario? So for us, it was yes. When was the child born? So this is the date of birth of our child. Then is the child deceased? So this was no for us. Are one or more parents unable to certify this birth due to incapacitating illness or death? This was also no for us. Then was this child born through surrogacy? So this was no for us. Is the child in the legal custody or care and control of a person other than the parents? This was also no for us. Then was this a single or multiple birth? So for us, it was just a single birth. Only one person came out of my wife. Was the child delivered by a person other than a doctor or midwife? So that was no for us because a doctor actually delivered our child. So we'll click on no. If a person other than a doctor or midwife delivered the child for you, then you click on yes, and then you'll have instructions for additional documents that you may need to provide. Then how many parents will be listed on the birth registration? So me and my wife both wanted to be listed on our child's birth registration, so that's why we selected 2. Then next up is child's name. So obviously by this time you should have the child's name ready. So put the first and last name. If you're using a middle name, put that. We didn't have a middle name, so that's why we checked not applicable. Do the parents agree on this last name? So this was yes for us. Then details about the birth. So sex of the child was male. Then weight at birth. So if you remember it, that's fine. If you don't, then just refer to the discharge papers that I showed you in the beginning. They will have the weight of your child at birth. In which city, town was the child born? So our child was born in Toronto. Where was the child born? So it was a hospital. Then select the name of the hospital from this drop down list. Who delivered the child? So a physician, a doctor delivered our child. So that's why I'm going to check physician. The name of the physician or doctor who delivered the child. So again, if you don't remember the name, refer to your discharge papers. Those should have that detail. And then simply put the first and last name of the physician here. Then next up is name of the parent. So I'll populate my name first. Then did this parent give birth? So that was no for me. Then name of the next parent. So I'll populate my wife's first name and last name here. Then did this parent give birth? So that would be a yes. Then next up is parent title. So which title would Apurva like to have on the child's birth registration? So she would like to have mother as a title. Then what was the marital status of my wife when our child was born? So she was married. So we'll select that. Duration of pregnancy in weeks, so it was 41 weeks. Again, you can refer to your discharge papers to confirm the duration. Has Apurva previously given birth? So this was the first child for us, so this is no. Then Apurva's date of birth here. Did the parent have a different last name when they were born? So she did not change her last name after marriage, so it's the same last name, so this is no. Did this parent ever use any other last name? That was also no. Then where was this parent born? So city, province was not applicable because she was born in India and country was India. Similarly, this page would be details about me, the father. So parent title, I would like father to be on the birth registration. Then my date of birth. Did this parent have a different last name? That was also no for me. Did this parent ever use any other last name? Also no for me. And then my place of birth, province is not applicable, and my country of birth. Then enter your postal code, click on verify, make sure it's verified. Then put your telephone number, mailing address. Again, make sure all this information matches the one that you gave to the hospital. Do you live in an area needing a special delivery mode? This was no for us. Then is the mailing address same as the permanent address? So this was yes for us. Then on the final review page, you make sure all this information about the child and the parents is correct. If you have to make changes, now is the time. Then you scroll down, click on certify, consent, and click continue, and your first part of the application for birth registration is done. Alright, so next up is ordering a birth certificate. So don't skip this step because you'll need your child's birth certificate in order to apply for their Canadian passport. So the birth certificate that you want to get is this one, birth certificate with parental information. This will have the name, date of birth, place of birth of the child, and the names and places of birth of both parents. This is also commonly referred to as the long form birth certificate, although it comes in a very short piece of paper. But the birth certificate with parental information is the one that you will need to apply for your child's passport. So make sure you get this one. We also ordered this exact birth certificate with parental information, and we used it to apply for our child's passport, and it was accepted. So click on add to order to add this birth certificate with parental information to your cart. It will cost you $25. Now you can also click on yes here to review other kinds of birth certificates. So don't even bother about this one, this really short form birth certificate without parental information. This is not really any use other than just being a proof of birth. So you don't really need to select this one. Now this one, this certified copy of birth registration, is the really detailed long form statement of live birth. It looks something like this. This is my child's certified copy of birth registration. Yes, I ordered it as well. So it's printed on a legal size paper. It contains a raised seal for security and verification purposes. Now this detailed certified copy of birth registration is not really required for your child's passport application, but it might be required for certain other visa applications or immigration applications. For example, if you are an Indian national and your child is a Canadian born, so your child is a Canadian citizen, and you're looking to apply for an OCI card, Overseas Citizen of India card for your child, then they may ask for this certified copy of birth registration. So it's a good idea to get this one. Now, you don't have to get this certified copy of birth registration right away if you don't want, because it's obviously going to cost you $35. So you can skip it for now. Make sure you get the birth certificate with parental information at least. And then you can always come back to this application and specifically get the certified copy of birth registration later. Then which parent will be the applicant for the above birth certificate? So as long as the parent meets any of these three conditions, whichever applies to you, you can be the applicant for the child's birth certificate. So for me and my wife, this first condition, a parent named on the birth registration, applies. So either one of us could be the applicant. I simply chose myself. Then you hit continue, check this consent box, and your birth certificate application is done. You've still not submitted the application, but at least the form is completed. You'll submit this once you make the payment. Alright, so now we get into the additional services for this bundle. First up is the Canada Child Benefit. This is a really wonderful benefit. Basically, if you have a child born in Canada and you yourself are eligible as a parent, then you get a monthly payment sent to the child's primary caregiver's account, tax-free of course. So I highly recommend you apply for this while registering the birth of your child, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. Speaking of eligibility, if you click on this information on parent eligibility button, you'll see it says you may apply through this service if you live with the child and are the parent who is the child's primary caregiver. As the parent who is the primary caregiver, you must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident and hold a social insurance number. So remember what I told you in the beginning of the video? In order to use this 5-in-1 service to apply for the Canada Child Benefits, the primary caregiver, which is the mother in most cases, has to be a permanent resident or Canadian citizen with a valid social insurance number. So for example, me and my wife are a couple, we've had a newborn recently, so my wife, the mother, becomes the primary caregiver. So if my wife has to apply for Canada Child Benefits through this bundle application, meaning this particular 5-in-1 service right here, then my wife, the primary caregiver, has to be a permanent resident or Canadian citizen with a valid social insurance number. Only then can my wife submit the CCB application through this portal. So my wife is a permanent resident and she has a valid social insurance number, so she is eligible. So she can apply for CCB through this 5-in-1 service. Now if you're a temporary resident, let's say on work permit or an international student, then you cannot apply for Canada Child Benefits using this service, meaning this 5-in-1 bundle service that we are using right now. That doesn't mean you can't apply, you just can't submit the CCB application through here. In that case, if you're a temporary resident, you come back to this page and under who can get the Canada Child Benefits, you have to first meet all these eligibility conditions. But as you can see, there is one condition for temporary residents as well. Basically, if you've been a temporary resident in the past 18 months and in the 19th month, your temporary resident status is still valid, then you can still apply for Canada Child Benefits as long as you meet all the other conditions as well. So you click on apply here, you scroll down under how to apply. This second option, online through my account, has all the instructions which you can use to apply. Whether you're a temporary or permanent resident, Canadian citizen, doesn't matter, just set up a MyCRA account anyway. It's much better than applying through mail. So again, I don't want to get too much into this Canada Child Benefits right now, otherwise this video will get really long. I will post a dedicated video on Canada Child Benefits once I'm ready, and then it should show up here, and I'll also link it in the description below. But for now, let's come back to the 5-in-1 bundle application where my wife, the child's primary caregiver who's eligible, is applying for CCB through this application. So which parent is the child's primary caregiver? So obviously this is my wife. Then the social insurance number of my wife, and then check this notice of collection box and hit continue. Alright, next up is the social insurance number or SIN number application for your child, another highly important credential. So if you click on this parent eligibility button, it will tell you that as a parent, you must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident and have a Canadian address in order to apply for the SIN number for your child using this application, meaning this 5-in-1 bundle service, just like what we saw for the Canada Child Benefits earlier. So if you are a permanent resident or Canadian citizen, then all you have to do is simply check these two boxes and hit continue, and that's it. You're done with the social insurance number application for your child. It is really that easy. Now, if you're a temporary resident, then you can still apply for the SIN number for your child. You just can't use this 5-in-1 bundle service, meaning this application portal. So in that case, as a temporary resident, what you do is head on over to this page. This is the official instruction page for social insurance number. So under apply, you scroll down, you have all the instructions, you can read through them. But if you keep scrolling down, you just have to answer a few basic questions. So number one, you select this option, you're a parent, then your status in Canada, let's say it's temporary resident, then your child status, so child born in Canada, Canadian citizen, and then three options to apply: online, by mail, or in person. I would prefer online, it's easier, and it will tell you all the documents that you'll need to apply online. Finally, the fifth feature is to apply for an RESP account. Basically, this is an account to save for your child's education after high school. So in a nutshell, the way this works is you get in touch with a financial institution, could be a bank, could be a scholarship dealer, or any other financial institution that provides these services. They are often referred to as promoters in the context of this application, RESP promoters. So you open an RESP account with them. Then if you're eligible, your RESP account will receive benefits in that account depending on your family income. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about this here, but here is a page where you can read all about how RESP works, where you can open an account, how much can you expect to get in benefits, and when are these payments made. All that is here. So go through this material. If it makes sense to you and you're ready to apply, then you come back to this 5-in-1 bundle, and under this select a category, you select from a list of services. Let's go with banking services. And then you select the bank of your choosing and then provide your preferred method of contact, and then someone from that bank will get in touch with you to take it forward. And again, if you're not really sure about how this works right now, you don't have to apply for it right away. You can simply come down and choose this option that I don't want to request information about RESPs. That's fine. You can always come back and apply later. Then you'll get to the summary of the services that you've selected. So here's the summary of my services for my child. As you can see, the only cost is $25 for the birth certificate. Every other service we selected was free, and we did not go with the RESP option. So then I hit continue, make the $25 payment using my credit or debit card, and I get a page like this. This is the receipt. So here I type my email address because I also want the receipt to be delivered to my email. And then if I scroll down, I'll see the services that I've selected, the price, and the order number for each service. You're pretty much done at this point. The same receipt is going to be delivered to your email as well. Now on the summary receipt, they'll also tell you the timeline you can expect to receive each of these services. For example, it says birth registration can take 6 to 8 weeks. and then 15 days after registering your birth, so around 2 weeks after the birth is registered, they will issue you your birth certificate, meaning the birth certificate of your child. So I applied for these services on November 18, 2023, and I received my child's birth certificate in the mail January 5, 2024. So less than 2 months. Now if you want to track the status of the birth certificate, here's how you do it. So you get to this page, I already showed this page to you in the beginning, then you scroll down and click on check status of delivery. Then you enter the order number of the birth certificate exactly like that for the birth certificate. So this order number next to the birth certificate, you enter this order number here, and then they'll tell you the status if there's a match. Just a note, this service for tracking the status can only be used to track the birth certificate, not for Canada Child Benefits, SIN number, health card or RESP. Only to track the status of the birth certificate as of now. Now SIN number also takes 6 to 8 weeks after registration. So we received our child's SIN number in the mail on January 8. So it was again less than 2 months from the date of application. So under CCB, it says you can expect to receive your first notice or payment within 8 weeks of registration. So again, we submitted the application on November 18th as a bundle service for CCB as well. And my wife received her first notice on January 1st from the CRA. So it took about 45 days to receive the notice, not a payment, but just a notice. They had some details to confirm, such as my wife's marital status, her residency status, and if she had any other income outside of what she had already reported on her CRA return. So very basic details. So then my wife responded to their questionnaire the next day by uploading the additional documents that they had asked for in her online account, meaning this My account or the CRA account. She already had an active account, so she simply provided information there. And that's why it will make things significantly easier if you also have an online CRA account and it's registered. Otherwise, you'll have to do this by mail and it might take more time. So from submitting the application to receiving the first CCB payment, including answering their additional document request, which caused an additional delay, the total timeline was 65 days, so slightly over 2 months. So that was all about the newborn registration process. Next up on the list is the passport application for your child. I'm working on that video as of now. As soon as I'm ready, I'll post it down below in the description and it will also show up in the cards here. So hit subscribe and you won't miss that. I'll see you there.